What if the person everyone underestimated became the one calling the shots? Emily Carter had spent years as a waitress at Grill Haven, ignored, overlooked, and discarded. She worked long hours, barely scraping by to support herself and her younger brother, Jake. The restaurant's toxic culture, where favoritism ran rampant and customers were treated differently based on how much they seemed likely to tip, was something she despised, but she kept her head down. She couldn't afford to lose her job. Then, one night, everything changed. It was a typical Saturday rush, the air thick with the scent of sizzling burgers and the sharp tang of freshly mopped floors. Emily, exhausted but determined, balanced a heavy tray of food while Tracy and Kyle, her co-workers, leaned against the counter, chatting and ignoring the growing line. When a man in a neat button-up shirt and dark slacks walked in, he was met with silence. No greetings, no fake smiles, just blatant dismissal. Emily watched as Tracy and Kyle ignored him, catering instead to a flashy customer wearing a gold watch. Something in her snapped. She set her tray down, stepped forward, and greeted the man warmly. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Grill Haven. What can I get for you?" The man studied her, then smiled. "Well, it's nice to finally be noticed." She took his order, made sure everything was perfect, and treated him as she would any other customer. She didn't know that this small act of kindness would change her life forever. The next morning, Emily arrived at work feeling the tension in the air. Mark, the store manager, stood near the register, arms crossed, scanning the floor with an unusually sharp gaze. Tracy and Kyle whispered near the soda machine, smirking in her direction. Something was wrong. Before she could even clock in, Mark called her into his office. The small, stuffy room smelled of stale coffee and paperwork. "We've been evaluating our staffing needs," he said flatly, "and we've decided to make some cuts. You're fired, effective immediately." Emily's stomach dropped. "What? That doesn't make any sense." Mark leaned back in his chair, feigning sympathy. "It's not personal. Your attitude just doesn't align with the company's values." Emily clenched her fists. She knew exactly what this was, punishment for treating someone fairly, but arguing wouldn't change anything. Without another word, she walked out. That night, she sat in her tiny apartment, staring at her last paycheck. Rent was due, Jake's tuition wasn't going to pay itself, and she had no backup plan. But just as she was spiraling into panic, her phone rang. "Good evening, Emily Carter. This is Jonathan Wells." Her heart pounded. Sorry, who?" "We met yesterday at Grill Haven. I have a proposal for you. Meet me tomorrow morning." The next morning, Emily arrived at a quiet cafe downtown, nerves twisting in her stomach. Jonathan Wells, the man she had served, was waiting with a cup of coffee, dressed in a crisp charcoal suit. "You're the owner of Grill Haven," she realized as she sat down. Jonathan nodded. "I visit my restaurants unannounced to see how they really operate. What I saw at your location was revealing. A staff that plays favorites, a manager who turns a blind eye, employees who follow that lead." He met her gaze. "But then, I saw you. You treated me the same as any other customer, not because you thought I was important, but because it was the right thing to do." Emily shifted in her seat. "I just believe in treating people fairly." "That's exactly why I want you to come back," Jonathan said, sliding a business card across the table. "Not as a waitress, as the manager." Emily froze. "A manager?" "You understand how a restaurant should run. You see what's wrong. Now, I want to see if you can fix it." Her mind raced. She had never managed a team before. Could she really take charge of the very people who had dismissed her? Jonathan seemed to sense her hesitation. "Take the night to think about it, but if you're ready to stop taking orders and start giving them, I'll be waiting." 2 days later, Emily stood outside Grill Haven, now wearing a crisp navy blue manager's uniform. This time, when she stepped inside, conversations halted. Tracy and Kyle froze mid-task. Mark, emerging from the back, went pale when he saw the name tag pinned to her uniform. "What the hell is this?" Mark growled. Emily met his glare head-on. "I'm the new manager," Mark scoffed. "Like hell you are." He turned sharply. "Where's Wells?" As if on cue, Jonathan walked in, hands casually in his pockets. "You don't need to speak to me, Mark," he said coolly, "because I'm here to speak to you." Mark squared his shoulders. "You're making a mistake." Jonathan's expression didn't change. "No, Mark, you did. You're fired." Mark's face turned red. "You'll regret this." Emily didn't flinch. "This place deserves better than you." Mark stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The entire restaurant was silent. Taking charge wasn't easy. Tracy and Kyle resisted, dragging their feet, whispering behind her back. Orders were mysteriously wrong, customers were overcharged, and Emily soon realized this wasn't incompetence, it was sabotage. She pulled up the restaurant's financial logs, combing through transaction history. Then she found it. Late-night adjustments, intentional price changes, and every fraudulent charge traced back to one login, Kyle's. She confronted him after hours. "Do you want to explain this?" Kyle hesitated, then exhaled. "It was Tracy. She told me to. But she's just following orders." He looked away. "It's Mark. He's the one pulling the strings. He's paying employees under the table to sabotage you. He wants you gone." Emily's blood ran cold. This wasn't just workplace drama. It was a battle for control. The next morning, Emily gathered the staff. On the screen behind her, financial logs revealed the truth. "I know who's been tampering with the system," she said. "Anyone involved has two choices: own up now or leave." Silence. Then Kyle stepped forward. "It was me, but Tracy told me to." Tracy's face twisted with fury. "You little—" "Enough," Emily said. "Tracy, you're fired." Tracy stormed out. Then Jonathan walked in. Mark followed, smirking. "You really think you've won?" Jonathan ignored him. "Emily, how do you want this handled?" She met his eyes. "This place deserves better than Mark." Jonathan nodded. "Mark, you're done. Permanently." Mark's smirk faltered. He glanced around, but no one defended him. Without another word, he walked out for the last time. Weeks passed, and Grillhaven flourished. Employees worked with a newfound purpose, customers noticed the change, and Emily proved that a restaurant could succeed without favoritism and corruption. Then Jonathan returned with another offer. "Ever thought about managing multiple locations?" Emily blinked. "You mean—" Jonathan smiled. "I want you to oversee more than just this restaurant. You've built something incredible here. Now, I want to see if you can do it on a larger scale." Emily took a deep breath. A month ago, she had been a waitress struggling to be noticed. Now, she was being given the opportunity of a lifetime. She met Jonathan's gaze. "When do I start?"